Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Waves of Healing. We are dedicated to communicate to you and provide you with information of being aware and keep open mind to alternative ways of healing, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual. I'm your host, Leah Yekutiel, coming to you live from Los Angeles, California, every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time. I'm a reconnective healing practitioner, a breast cancer victor, not victim, and the author of the book, Making the Breast of It, with the subtitle, Overcoming Fear of Intimacy After Mastectomy. In order to learn more about me and my book, please visit my website at www.ilovemybreastcancer.com. All in one word, ilovemybreastcancer.com. And when you're visiting my website, please purchase my book and give a gift of love to somebody you love who went through breast cancer, where they can learn how to reclaim their femininity back after breast cancer, how to build their self-confidence living with one breast or none, and learn how to accept their new image and love it, and learn that sexuality exudes from inside out and not from outside in. And the most important thing that they would learn through the many exercises in the book, how to connect through their spiritual aspect of life, where they realize that we women are not only our breasts in order to be viable, functional, sexual beings. And this is so important for all of us to learn, because there is such a misconception in our society that believing that women who had breast cancer are not women anymore. And this is far, far away from the truth. So this book is really educational for both genders. And while you are visiting my website, you also have the option to download for free 25 breast health tips. And if you apply some of them in your daily life, you'll be surprised how many cancers, how many other diseases we can prevent. Because my show, it's all about prevention. And doctors, only they can do is to diagnose us and many times misdiagnose us, but to be able to take care of ourselves is our responsibility. Therefore, we have to be very vigilant and learn what kind of pills we put in our mouth and what kind of food we feed our body. These are so important. And with that said, again, please go to my website and download those 25 breast health tips for free. With that said, I want to tell you who is my guest today, which I am so excited about. My guest today is Greg O'Brien, author of the book on Pluto, Inside the Mind of Alzheimer's. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Greg O'Brien, but for those who are not that familiar with him, I'm just going to read a few things about him, and we'll learn we are so lucky to have him with us today, and we'll be able to talk with him personally. So Gregor O'Brien has more than 35 years of newspaper and magazine experience as a writer, editor, investigative reporter, and publisher. Over the years, he has contributed to many, many, many magazines that I do not have time to mention all of them in this contest. And all I can say that Greg O'Brien has published 17 books, and the latest being On Pluto, Inside the Mind of Alzheimer's. And he's here today to talk about this experience. We can learn so much from him. Greg, are you there?
Yes, I am. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you very much for doing whatever you are doing, and I'm sure our listeners will have so much to learn from you.
Well, thank you for having me as a guest.
Yeah, well, when I got a message about what you are doing, and I said, I've got to have you as a guest on my radio show, because with the big message that you have, it's a must for everybody to be aware about it. So here's my question.
Sure.
What is the purpose of your book, On Pluto, Inside the Mind of Alzheimer's?
Well, On Pluto is the first book written by an investigative reporter embedded inside the mind of Alzheimer's, chronicling the progression of his own disease. By way of background, my maternal grandfather, my mother, my paternal uncle all died of Alzheimer's, and before my father passed away, he had prostate cancer, which I have, and also circulation disease, but he was also diagnosed with dementia. I started the symptoms several years ago, and horrific short-term memory loss, not recognizing familiar people I've known all my life, including my wife on 2 occasions, not recognizing familiar places, seeing things that weren't real, and then I had the brain scan and the SPECT scan and the clinical tests, which all confirmed the diagnosis, and I also carry the Alzheimer's marker gene APOE4. And at that point, the doctor said, "You're not getting out of it." So,
Would you say, Greg? Would you say it's a hereditary?
Well, in my case, it is, but in many cases, it is not. So it can be, but there are more cases where Alzheimer's is not. And so I embrace with this. I could have gone into a pity party, which I did, and then had kind of the discussion with God about what's going on here. And then I decided, well, why don't I try to do something useful and fall back on my muscle memory and take copious notes and write a first-person book. And I over a period of time, probably ended up with about 1,000 pages of notes, first writing down all the things I was afraid I'd forget, and then chronicling what my mother was going through, what I was going through, and having compiled that, I wrote the book. Pluto would not be possible with the help of several people. Chief among them is Lisa Genova, who wrote the novel Still Alice, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the movie that Julianne Moore won Best Actress for, and Lisa wrote the foreword to my book, and she was extremely helpful, as well as New York Times best-selling authors Anne LeClaire and William Martin. So I had a good team of people, all friends, who helped me with this project.
So how long ago you felt this feeling of forgetfulness and stuff like this? I mean, I read in your book saying that Alzheimer's starts in our brain like 10, 15 years before Alzheimer's people have any symptoms.
Yeah, it can be. It can be as much as 20 years, and part of the book was to kind of push back on the stereotype that Alzheimer's is a disease of someone in their late 80s or 90s. For the most part, individuals with Alzheimer's at that age likely or more than likely started developing the disease 15 or 20 years before that. And it's a death in slow motion. It's like having a sliver of your brain shaved every day. And you know, the stereotype, which is problematic, and the reason why people don't want to talk about Alzheimer's is they just think it's a disease of the elderly. And, you know, at some point we all die. It's the cartoon character Bugs Bunny once said, nobody gets out alive. And that's true. But there are people in the early stages of Alzheimer's, and in the novel still Alice Hiscock was, and again, a fictional character, but realistic, was teaching at Harvard when dealing with the symptoms. I gave a speech recently in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Harvard is located, and two Harvard professors came up afterwards and thanked me for the book and thanked me for the speech and said they knew exactly what I was talking about because they were teaching at Harvard, and they had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So the horrific symptoms, they're you know, at times 60% of my short-term memory can be gone in 30 seconds. And, you know, as I said before, I don't recognize people I've known all my life. People have to reintroduce themselves, you know, see things that aren't there, go into tremendous rage. There are times I could pick up a phone and not remember how to dial, or pick up my lawn sprinkler in the backyard and not know what it's for. And, you know, there was a time once when, you know, I lived back here in New England, the winters are cold, and we got a wood stove, and I opened the wood stove, and my brain told me that it's okay to push the stove back against the hot glass plate that is inside the stove, and I did so until my hand burned in a third-degree burn. And that's just part of the shutting down of the disease. It's like a light going off in your head, or a light flickering on and off, and then pretty soon the light, over a period of time, goes dead. And
you don't know when it's going to happen, right?
A lot of times you don't. Sometimes you could sense it, but that I think, I'm not a medical expert. I tell people the most I ever did was cut up a frog in high school. But it you know, it flickers and it shuts off. But that's just part. What it is. I do know this because I studied the disease. There's something called synapse, and people who are listening probably have heard of that. It's you know, our brains are electrical circuits, and there's a electrical current that goes from you know, one neuron to the next that creates a thought, completes a sentence. And when the neurons aren't firing right, synapse is not working, complete a sentence, or you forget the word, and over time that neuron dies, and you know, we got a lot of neurons in our head, but that's the process of Alzheimer's. It's the slow death of neurons in your brain.
That's what we call What's the name of it? I forget myself.
You're asking me.
We're talking about senior moments.
Yeah, right.
Is that what you are talking about?
No. And that's what people need to understand about Alzheimer's. There's a difference between losing your car keys and not knowing you have car keys, and a difference between not knowing where your car is parked or remembering, and not knowing that you have a car. Good case in point.
Okay, got it.
On Cape Cod,
one of them being Alzheimer's and the other one being senior moment, right?
Correct. The senior moment doesn't mean that they're going to develop Alzheimer's. It's just part of the aging process. But there was a time not too long ago where on Cape Cod you take your trash to the dump, probably unlike where you guys live, and I dropped my trash to the dump, and then I looked around and I was trying to figure out how I get home, and I figured, well, I could call my wife or my kids, or someone could come pick me up. And well, I used to drive a yellow Jeep, and it was sitting right in front of me, but my brain, 4-door yellow Jeep, but my brain would not tell me that was my car.
Mm.
The light switch had gone off.
Now, is there any medical solution for it? I mean, is the Western medicine knows anything about it, how to prevent it, or anything like this, Greg?
Well, right now there is no cure. Working on all fronts of medicine, traditional and non-traditional. There are a lot of people who will bring up certain things as a cure, or maybe isolated cases as a cure. The reality is that someone came up with a cure for Alzheimer's and it really worked, they'd be a billionaire, and that hasn't happened yet. And, I'm not saying that there haven't been people that have been remarkably improved, but as a general cure, we're still a ways from there, and we have very fine, intelligent people, both on the traditional and non-traditional medical fronts that are looking at this, and I kind of feel that the solution may be somewhere in the middle between traditional and non-traditional medicine. But what do I know? I cut up a frog in high school. That's it.
Well, I don't know. You accomplished a lot in your life, so I don't give that much credit to the academic, to whatever it's called, doctors and professors and the regular medical establishment, because I've experienced on myself that the Western medicine did not help me in any way or sense.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go through various healing modalities in order to heal myself physically and emotionally. So the only thing that the medical establishment, it prescribed pills to keep people numb.
Yeah.
And this is not the solution for anything. Because, you see, they handle the symptom. They try to manage the symptoms.
Right.
But the symptoms are a result of a lot of things that happen to all of us internally, emotionally, spiritually. And all this cause the symptoms of all kind of our illnesses.
Well, I think, and again, I'm more of a traditional person than a non-traditional person, but I think there's a lot of truth to what you say. I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. I have a strong faith. It's not my job to define faith for other people. They have to define it for themselves. I was raised Irish Catholic, and I tell people I'm more evangelical now, but don't tell my relatives in Dublin because they're going to stone me. But I on the spiritual side, I think that there are many cases where people have been cured on the spiritual side or from the spiritual side that absolutely amazes doctors. So, are there situations beyond traditional medicine where there's incredible healing? Yes, there is. I'm not smart enough to understand, where you draw the lines on that, but I think we all need to keep an open eye. I mean, I do feel that there are times when traditional medicine is the right approach, but times when it may not be, and there are cases where people have been healed in non-traditional ways. So I'm not a skeptic. I'm open-minded on it. How's that?
That sounds great. That's what we all should be.
Yeah, I'm a, as a trained journalist, you look at the facts. So and the facts are pretty clear that there's traditional and non-traditional.
Yeah. How about have you thought about just the way you said earlier, about non-traditional, like spiritual, there are many things that instant healing occurs. Have you ever thought about this approach in order to get healing?
Well, I may be an odd duck in this. You asked a question, so I'll give you the answer. It's not my place to define beliefs for other people. I'm not here to proselytize. So
I'm thinking about you.
We're all creatures of our backgrounds. But here's to answer your question and answering it in an honest way. I believe in a heaven, and there are days when I want to get there, and so I'm not so focused myself on prolonging my time on this earth. I'm trying to make the most out of it. So, cure is wonderful, yeah, but my focus beyond a cure is trying to take this time and do the best I can with this life I've been given, and in that process, try to connect with as many people in good, sound ways as I can. So that's I'm not afraid to die.
And I really commend you for that. Because other people may cave in and not to do anything about it, but you're doing something about it in your own way.
There are times where you could see it in churches or synagogues or non-traditional places or whatever you want to call it. Everyone's getting around and spreading hands or praying, for someone who's 90 years old to keep them alive. And I'm saying, let them go. There's a God out there, I believe, and we've got to toe the line here, but we're all going to a better place. So why stay here? And I want to stay as long as care of my family and my kids, but I don't want to be in that end stage that I saw my mother and grandfather. I have prostate cancer. I am not treating my prostate cancer because there is no cure for all. Well, there is no cure for Alzheimer's, and I made a personal decision with my family and my doctors that I'm not going to take my family to that place of the end stage of Alzheimer's and what it does. If there was a cure or a reason to believe that would be different. So that's sort of my exit strategy. But that gets back to the statement I made to you that I'm not afraid of dying. I believe there's a heaven. I'm not interested in getting there before my time, but I'm not afraid to get there.
Yeah, I totally understand.
I mean, it's a different point of view than it's a different point of view than a lot of people have. I understand it's a different point of view. Maybe a lot of your listeners, and I fully respect that. It just happens to be my point of view, and I find in life. I find in Alzheimer's, by the way, I've become less judgmental. because a lot of the things, traditional things that I had held on to, you start wondering, and I become far less judgmental. So I tell people my mind used to be my best friend. It was my prized possession, and I don't see any chance of reconciliation now. So I've tried to learn to speak from the heart, from the soul, however someone wants to define that, because the bodies we're walking around with are going to be death someday. And so that's been my journey, and I'm working on a follow-up book called Beyond Pluto: Journey from the Mind to the Heart.
Oh, really? You're writing another book now?
Yeah, I am.
Wonderful. There is some.
Hey, but by the way, on Pluto, Inside the Mind of All, interested in reading it, and you can't find it in a bookstore. A good place to get it is on Amazon. It's done well on Amazon, Amazon.com.
Okay, where else can they get your book? On Pluto, the title of your book is On Pluto, right?
I would say the easiest place is Amazon. I go to Amazon.com. It is in bookstores, but sometimes I would just recommend you get it right away. Go on Amazon.com.
How about your website? Do you have a URL?
We have a website, yeah, and people can go. My website, thank you for asking, is onpluto.org. So it's onpluto.org. And also onpluto.org. And I know your listeners are from different places, but if there's anyone listening in the L.A. area, I don't travel alone. My son will be with me, but I'm going to be at a book signing in Riverside, California on Friday, May 15th, Cellar Door Bookstore from 5:30 to 7. That's the Cellar Door Bookstore in Riverside, California. Friday, May 15th, a week from this coming Friday, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. So if someone comes in and they've listened to the show, please come in and say hi.
Oh, great. Where else are you going to be speaking? Anywhere else in California?
Well, I'm going to be speaking in doing some TV and radio interviews, and speaking I have a book signing in San Diego, which is Saturday, May 9th at the Unicorn Bookstore. It's actually in Ramona, outside San Diego. It's Unicorn Bookstore. And several TV interviews and things along those lines.
Well, that's great. You see, what I like about you, you don't cave in. You do whatever you have to do in order to educate people here. And if it's time for you to go, that's how I feel. If it's my time to go, then it's my time to go. I'm not going to hang around for doing nothing, not being able to help myself or other people, because I totally believe that we are here on this earth to help and educate and learn and grow spiritually. And
we're here for a purpose. We're and that purpose is different for everyone. And it doesn't have to be academic. It doesn't have to be writing. It could be to encourage people. It could any person in the world or any person listening is here for a purpose. It's a matter of finding that gift. We're all gifted, and I like to encourage people sometimes who feel that they're not gifted, because we're all gifted, and sometimes we just have to reach inside and find that gift. But we've all. I believe that God, or however you want to define God, has given us all gifts, and it's a matter of finding those gifts and sharing them.
And that's what you are doing, and that's why I'm so excited about what you are doing. Even though you are, instead of complaining and saying I'm a victim, I am victim of my genes, of my ancestors, and you say, okay, so it is what it is, and let's see what I do in order to help other people and educate other people.
I'm not going to say that I didn't have my moments or I do have my moments, but I don't want to wallow in it. One of my favorite scenes was in Moonstruck when Cher slapped Nick Nolte. I probably got his name wrong, but the famous actor in the face.
Not Nick Nolte.
No,
Nicolas
he's one
Cage.
of my favorite actors.
Nicolas Cage, Greg.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors. I can't remember his name, but that comes with the territory. And said, "Snap out of it." And I play that scene in my mind often, where I just say to myself, "Snap," because I thought it was a pretty funny, a poignant scene. Never forgot it, and I just said, "Hey, pal, snap out of it."
Yeah.
So
you. I don't know. Reading your book, I've been crying all the time. The way.
Well, hopefully you've been laughing, because it's a book about faith, hope, and humor, and what I tried to do.
I was crying because the way you describe it, the way you earlier described it, it's like your mind, your brain is slivered, cut, every moment, a piece of it. And this picture got to my mind, and I said, oh, my God, wow, maybe it's happening to me right now, and I don't know about it.
Yeah.
See, that's why I was crying. I think I was crying for myself, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's happening to me, but I admire your courage to do whatever you do and go forward with it and let people know about it, and that's all you can do.
Well,
right?
And I'm not. I don't want to alarm people, but the statistics are statistics, and
yes.
It's been said that in short years to come, there'll be two types of people in the world: those with Alzheimer's and those caring for someone with Alzheimer's. If we don't find a cure, of the leading killer diseases, it is the only disease for which there is no cure at any level. And the only disease for which the death toll is rising. The Alzheimer's, and this isn't me, they can go online and check it. They will find that exponentially they are expecting diagnosed cases of Alzheimer's to outstrip cancer and heart disease sevenfold in short years to come. And the crisis is here. It's not off in the distance. It's here, and we're living through it, and that's why we desperately need to find a cure. And the reason why maybe it hasn't had the visibility that it should are twofold. People are locked into the stereotype, thinking it's just a disease of the old, which is not true in any form, or understandably, the umbrella word for Alzheimer's is dementia, and there are several types of dementia, and it has a Latin root that draws a word picture of a demon howling in the desert. So who wants to talk about that? You know, you can't remove a brain. It's people don't want to talk about the brain and losing your brain. It's scary. Now, damn it. Cancer is scary. I know that, and ALS and AIDS and autism. They're all scary, and I don't want a single cent spent less on taking care of those diseases and taking care of people and trying to find cures and better cures. I'm just saying that we have this disease called Alzheimer's that people in the past have paid little attention to, that is now rising to the number one killer that doctors say, without a cure, will take out the baby boom generation and will bankrupt Medicare. And
why
that's
is
not
it
me.
Greg, earlier you said that pretty soon we'll have Alzheimer's patients and caregivers for Alzheimer's patients.
Right.
Now, why is this disease is increasing. Is there anything in the air? Why? Is it in the food? Or what caused it?
That's a very good question. The doctors don't fully know, but a couple things to consider. We're living longer now. Secondly, if you look, you could go all the way back to Plato and Aristotle, and you'll see writings that indicate situations of what today someone might call Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's was not discovered in the early 1900s. It was just named, and it's named for a doctor, Alzheimer's. And that was his surname. But this disease has been around a long time. Having said that, as I said before, you can get it genetically, but in most cases not. Are there things in the environment? Are there things that we're eating? I think absolutely. You look at things with cancer, you look at things with other diseases, I think that can have impacts. Does it have impacts in every case? No. Are there things that cause certain diseases? Sure. But I think in many cases there are unknown factors in our environment, some of which actually are known now, but there are others that can contribute to sicknesses. And that's why we should never stop looking at that in both traditional and non-traditional ways. It's a new frontier, and it's very important for people to be educated on that in proper ways.
And that's wonderful, and that's what you are doing, and this is incredible what you are doing. It's absolutely wonderful. I was talking about the fact that you are going to be a guest on my radio show, and people ask me, they believe that uneducated people, or mostly people who do not use their brain that much, and it could be prevented if they use their brain and they keep active physically, emotionally, mentally, if they keep active.
I think, yeah. But my answer
to
that, my answer to that is I don't believe with exercising the brain and the body you're going to prevent Alzheimer's, because I've exercised my brain and body all my life.
Okay.
I do believe, so that to me that will be a misnomer. I do believe that exercising your brain and your body will help you sustain yourself more through something like Alzheimer's or cancer or anything along those lines. I believe that has a huge impact, potentially in some cases, not all cases, of slowing a progression. So I find that, in fact, I'm on Cape Cod, and as we talk, I am right outside my gym. When we're done, I'm going to go work out, as I do every day at this time, because it something called sundowning in Alzheimer's, where it affects your brain, as it starts to get dark, and then I'll go right. So, that's I think that's important. So that's what I do.
As of right now, Greg, you are functioning okay. Besides temporary forgetfulness and stuff like this, am I right? Or you have somebody with you at all times?
Well, I say that my brain is like an iPhone. It's still a sophisticated device, but it breaks down. It pocket dials. It has a short-term battery, and it gets lost easily. So my brain deals with all that, and I have restrictions on my driving, as I should have. I am not allowed to travel alone. I am not allowed to go out in my boat alone. I have a device on my iPhone that tells people, family, where I am at all times. And I kid about it. I also write for the Huffington Post blog, so if you want to read any of them, just Google Greg O'Brien, Huffington Post, and I've written about a lot of this. And one of the pieces I wrote was about the device that I agreed to have on my iPhone. But I call it, there's this, remember the old rhyme where the mice tried to bell the cat so they knew where the cat was at all times, put a bell on it. So I call it belling the cat. But it's a loss of freedom, so to speak. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts. But that's life.
Greg, it's been wonderful talking with you. I'm telling you, it's been eye-opening for me. And I'm sure it's opening for a lot of our listeners. Now, we have 2 more minutes left. What would you like to leave for the listeners as a summary of our conversation today?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say at 10,000 feet is encourage everyone, wherever they are in life, to walk in faith, humor, and hope, and not to give up. And there are days when, man, we all want to give up. And there are days when we do give up. But the next day, get back up again, as I point out in my book, and I'm not the first person who said this, lying down, as it is in football and wrestling, is a position of defeat. And all of us have different levels of fight. But whatever that level of fight in you, fight, because you're going to have a richer life. But beyond that, more importantly, is you're going to affect people in so many positive ways by your fight. And you will be a lamppost to individuals. Secondly, I want people to understand that Alzheimer's is not just a disease of people who are 85 or 90, and that there are people like I'm 65, and there are people like myself walking around with horrific symptoms. And thirdly, I'd like everyone to reach out to their state officials and congressmen and senators and push for more funding for a cure, because the funding is pathetic compared to other diseases. And I've said before, I don't want a single cent spent less on cancer or AIDS or ALS or autism or any of that. We need to spend more money, but we need to take this disease seriously.
And that's what your goal is, and that's what you are doing, which I really appreciate it. Greg, thanks.
Well, I have this saying I'll leave you with, and it's a clarion call. All of us can walk in. And I can't use the expletive because we're on radio, but it's in my book, and people are smart now. But I say these demons don't know who they're screwing with. And you can read the book to find out the missing link there on the word.
This is fantastic. Read the book. Eye-opening, and I encourage all our listeners, please go and get the book on Pluto and educate ourselves. This is our job, to educate ourselves about everything that's happening in the world. Because today it's you, tomorrow it's going to be somebody else. And if we have the right education, we will be able to know how to approach these diseases.
Right. Well, you're right on that.
Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate you taking the time and the energy to educate the masses about this unbelievable disease that, according to you, it's going up, but we have to get it down and get it under control. So thanks so much, and I also want to thank our listeners who've been so faithful and listening to all our shows. By the way, all my shows are going to be recorded on YouTube and iTunes, so you're going to get a lot of exposure.
Well,
again,
thank you.
Thank you much, Greg, and we'll talk with you, everybody, next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.